approved, the measure would adopt new congressional maps in California that would further favor Democrats. Chris Wolf live at L.A. County's Election Center in the City of Industry with the latest. Chris.
Absolutely, Micah and Cher. The buck stops right here, the L.A. County Registrar's Office in City of Industry, where votes are collected and processed. I can tell you it is demanding, repetitive work, and everyone you see behind me had to take mandatory stretching and exercise break a short time ago. We've seen truckloads of ballots rolling in with L.A. County deputy escorts, choppers landing at a nearby helipad, all kinds of activity. Red versus blue and blue versus red. Partisan politics are playing out in a major way as California votes on Proposition 50 this election day. Poll workers tell us they've seen a heavy turnout with a steady stream of voters lining up to cement their voices, starting at 7 a.m. when the polls open. We stopped at a location in Silver Lake to hear viewpoints.
I like the idea of keeping it an independent commission versus having it being done by our legislators, because that's going to be something that's going to happen, that's going to affect for years to come. So I'm not sure why it was being done now, and so I voted against it.
It's not really fair that Trump is doing this stuff, and I think that we need to nip it in the bud as hard as we can, and who knows what'll even happen and if this will even go through and what he'll do to come back against it.
Prop 50 asks voters whether to adopt new state lawmakers on congressional maps in California, which would remain in effect through 2030. And impact the next 3 congressional elections in 2026, 2028, and 2030. The current map shows significantly more red than the result if Prop 50 passes. Redistricting would position Democrats to pick up 5 extra U.S. House seats, a countermeasure to similar so-called gerrymandering efforts by red states, giving them the and through the City of Industry.
Chris, thank you. With more on tonight's special election over redistricting, studio analyst Matt, good to have you. This could be a
I read the tea. If you look at TV last month, yes, Governor Newsom did a fantastic. Of nationalizing this race, blue California versus evil Donald Trump, and I think it's going to work.
Yeah, the ballot measure, one of the most expensive in California history, is really Governor Newsom's baby. And LA Times is calling it his most calculated gamble yet. The polls are about to close. Matt, it looks like the gamble is paying off.
It does, and I think that in August, when this was considered, everyone said, oh, gosh, if he loses, political future's in jeopardy. What if Arnold Schwarzenegger gets involved because the independent redistricting committee was his baby, or commission was his baby? Well, Schwarzenegger, he dipped a toe in the water, and I think someone out of his advisors said, don't jump in all the way. The water's too cold. And at that point, the cards were dealt.
All right, let's talk about the ripple effect of this, Matt. Of course, it started in Texas. It is now run through California. We get word today that Maryland's Democratic governor has launched a redistricting commission. The Supreme Court has yet to vote or rule on the Voting Rights Act, which could open the floodgates for redistricting. Where do you see this going?
Well, Micah, it's started for a long time. I mean,
sure.
California is less politically redistricted than other states. I mean, let's take Maryland, for example. Maryland has 8 congressional seats. They have 1 Republican. Republicans get roughly 34% of the vote. So Wes Moore is going to disenfranchise 34% of Republicans and give them no seats. I mean, Illinois, New Mexico, Massachusetts, Connecticut. So yes, mid-cycle redistricting in Texas was something that's new. Gavin Newsom responded back, but ultimately, if the Republicans play this game too, they can net more seats than Democratic states can.
Well, Proposition 50, Matt, not the only race tonight that we've been watching very closely. The nation's been watching very closely, and results are already coming in. What are your thoughts about the showing tonight?
It's not a surprise, but you would be naive to say it's not a good night for Democrats. They won 3 Supreme Court seats or retained 3 Supreme Court seats in Pennsylvania. They held the New Jersey governor. They flipped Virginia for the governor's race. They elected a Democrat attorney general who had some pretty caustic tweets threatening violence against the Republican leader. It's a good night for Republicans flat out, or for Democrats flat out. The interesting thing, though, is that the governors that won, they won by being moderate Democrats talking about affordability issues. I think that's the path forward for Democrats. Contrast with Mamdani in New York City, who ran way to the left. That's going to be the poll within the Democratic Party.
There's a lot more to talk about. We'll continue the conversation in a moment. Now we're going to go up to Sacramento and Eitan Wallace.
Yeah, that's right. Hi, Eitan. Good evening to you. He's our Capitol correspondent there in Sacramento and is at the Democratic Party headquarters and is more on the last-minute get out the vote efforts. Eitan, it's a little bit about that.
Yes, Sharon, Micah, indeed. Good evening to you in Southern California. And let me tell you, here at the California Democratic Party headquarters in Sacramento, there is a feeling of optimism. There is a good feeling, but as one Democratic leader told me earlier, this isn't over until it's over. And of course, the polls close now in less than 1 hour. Still some time to vote. Now, as for the get out the vote efforts, well, we were with some Democratic Party volunteers earlier as they took part in phone banking. Yes, phone banking to the very last minute. They are trying to reach voters before those polls close. They even had a little bell for every voter there reach and can confirm that they got that yes vote. So that's on the yes side of Prop 50. A lot of phone banking. On the no side, well, the California Republican Party taking to social media, even releasing a social media video with Congress member Doug LaMalfa. He's one of the members of Congress. He's from Northern California, north of Sacramento, who could be impacted should Prop 50 pass, whose district may flip from red to blue. He was there earlier posting on social media urging people to vote no on Prop 50. So there you go. I was able to catch up with leaders from both sides, from both of the campaigns earlier. They have their final message to voters.
This is California's opportunity to stand up, speak out, and push back. It was important for California to respond in this particular moment, and that's exactly what we've done.
Two wrongs don't make a right. We shouldn't be undermining our democracy and the concept of fairness in California that we've achieved simply because Texas or other states are doing something bad.
And that San Diego Republican Assembly member Carl DeMaio there, he has held more than 70 events over the last month to urge Californians to vote no on Prop 50. By the way, Democrats, including Governor Gavin Newsom, we expect to hear from Newsom here at the California Democratic Party headquarters a little bit later, but he has been across the state too just over the last weekend, right in your neck of the woods in L.A. He's been in San Diego. Yesterday, I was with him in San Francisco. So this is going to the very last minute, Micah and Cher, as both sides really try to get out the vote.
So,
Micah and Cher.
Eitan, despite those last-minute get-out-the-vote efforts, what's the feeling in Sacramento tonight? Are lawmakers under the impression that the polls are right and this thing is headed for a big victory?
You know, that's an excellent question. Well, first of all, Democratic leaders I spoke to say even though polls, including, by the way, our own poll at Next Star and Emerson College, showed that this thing, well, as of at least last week, was expected to pass with about 57% support approval, the Democratic leaders say they're not going to take anything for granted. So that's number one on the Democratic side. That's number one on the yes on Prop 50 side. Meantime, the no on Prop 50 side. I did catch up one-on-one with Republican Party Chair Corinne Rankin just a few weeks ago. She believes there are a lot of uncommitted voters out there, a lot of no party preference voters who are really on the fence about this. So on the Republican side, they really believe that they could really get out to the voters and try to really swing them, try to get them to vote no on this ballot measure. So, you know, yes, the polls show what the polls show, but both sides trying to get out that vote to the very bitter end. Micah and Cher.
So, Eitan, you know, the celebration was muted after he beat the 2021 recall effort. But what does Governor Newsom have planned tonight?
Question. Well, we do expect to hear from the governor here at the California Democratic Party headquarters in a matter of hours. You know, it's interesting because it's always a little difficult to tell with his schedule. He's always doing things last minute that us in the press corps cover him. It's a little bit tough to follow through, follow up, especially if he's making things last minute. But remember, he did speak to the press at the same exact spot about 3 years ago during his recall election when he overcame and defeated that recall. He came and spoke to the press then, probably a good half hour after the polls closed at 8 p.m. Could we expect the same tonight? Well, it just depends what those early returns show. But if this thing, Micah and Cher, is looking good for him, I surely expect that he will come and speak to the press right there shortly after those polls close. But again, it all depends on those initial returns. Micah and Cher.
All right, Eitan Wallace for us in Sacramento tonight. Thank you. Back with political analyst Matt Klink. Let's take a look at some of those other results from critical races across the country. We've got the full screens, a Democratic pickup in the race for Virginia governor, Congresswoman and former intelligence officer Abigail Spanberger has been declared the victor over Republican Winsome Earl Sears, the current lieutenant governor.
And then the race for New Jersey governor Cheryl has been declared the winner, keeping the governor's mansion blue